than me and my tone. You can't step to my throne.
No, like the evolution of man games. So it started as pretty much a sporting competition. Like the only events that were allowed were either something that's on ESPN or something that genuinely would not be argued as a sport. Whereas that's kind of changed a little bit. And then to this time, I mean, putting tennis balls in a balloon launcher and shooting them 300 yards and catching them, I mean, that's an athletic hand-eye coordination thing that pretty much anybody can do in the first 5 minutes that they learn about it. But I don't think anybody's going to call it a sport. So there's this man sports versus man games, and there's been an evolution from one to the other. And what do we want it to be? Because I think you want it to be something like you built this and you say to an executive committee or a company like Google, and you want them to have a retreat for a series of super important people that they want to impress or that have earned a getaway. Mm-hmm. And one way for them to do that is to sort of, and this is going to sound a little bit over the top, but like share blood, sweat, and tears with somebody or fight with somebody or get on the trenches with somebody. Well, a fun way to do that is to compete with somebody. And so you want them to compete in things that they could compete with, even if they really haven't played it before. Catching tennis balls, pickleball, right? Those are, even the 2-ball, like all of those are things where you could do that. And everybody knows how to like mostly kick a soccer ball in a PK. So, but like the first one, right? Like 4v4 basketball, 3-point shooting contest. There was a lot of other sports that were actually intense. I mean, we had a lot of golf.
We had 2 days of golf, huh?
Yeah, we had 2 days of golf, but we had so spike ball, when you're playing with people who have played, it's a sport. It's on ESPN. Like, it's super competitive. And also, let's be real, once you're over 30, all of the ones that are sports leave you sore and winded. And obviously, tennis balls and whatnot, cornhole doesn't,
we had poker.
Doesn't necessarily. Right, poker and cornhole.
Video games, we had ping pong.
We had but that was iteration 2.
Ping pong was iteration 1 up at JD's cabin.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Because we had that one table with, yeah.
So anyway, the evolution of man games and what its identity is in eventually, do you want it to be, racquetball, water polo, 11v11 soccer, 8v8 football, 5v5 basketball? Like, do you want it to be sports, tennis, pickleball, or do you want it to be a little bit more attainable to the average Joe so that it's, 2-ball was a riot, right? 2-ball was fun. And I think even if you only dabbled in basketball, you still enjoyed that was there. And it didn't make you sore. Like when we did volleyball and basketball in a 5-hour window, people were hurting.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that kind of evolution is something we could
talk
about.
There's 2 sides of that. So one is man games as the organizer and man games as the participant.
Oh, for sure.
And so the very first original man games, I had heard about it from a buddy. They had done some similar thing. It was mostly golf, and then they would play some other sports. And I was like, well, I consider myself reasonably athletic. And what I consider athletic isn't that you're good at one sport. I think that being athletic in my mind, again, I know it's all a lot of different things, but it's like, can you compete in the sport that I grew up playing, which is basketball? But I feel like I'm also reasonable at tennis. I'm also reasonable at ping pong. I'm also fine.
Reasonable at golf.
I'm fine at golf. I'm not great at anything, but I think if I go up against someone like yourself, and which is awesome being on your team in this most recent one, because you're also good at a lot of different sports. And as we saw at this, where I'm kind of weak, you're strong, and where you might be weaker, I might be stronger. But I like being able to show like, oh, okay, you'll beat me in golf, but I'll beat you in a shooting contest or whatever else. So it was originally developed to bring all these friends and acquaintances that I'd made over the years and say, all right, let's see how athletic we all are. And I had to win the event that I think I'm weakest at, which was poker. And I eked out John. And then the next one, again, we had these other sports. So as a participant, it was, let's see how well I can do against people in a sport that I think I'm really strong at, as well as activities or sports that I may not be strong at, but I think I'll do fine. So that's how it started. Now as it's evolved and it's getting bigger, like when we talk about all the sports that we did in that round 2 with volleyball, basketball, all this stuff, the more personalities you get and the more competitive people that want to do well at things, the more nervous I get, because that's where you really have to manage what events you include. So if it's like, I think 2-ball is great because like, where do you argue on 2-ball? Oh, they had more time than me. No, it's like, it's the same song for 60 seconds for everybody. It's the same spots. It's the same rules. You really can't have an argument in 2-ball.
I mean, I have one.
A buzzer beater?
Well, it was when John didn't shoot from the marker.
Oh, when you're not, like, your foot's not.
I don't care.
John, you were like 8 feet off of the marker for your layup. Yeah, but for the most part, right? And that's when, like, especially if we're recording it, we can be like, hey, like,
if you had a ref, if you had to have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the rule is your foot has to be on the marker, and if some part of you has to be touching the marker, and if it was,
and I know you're not totally on board with this yet, but one of the awesome things, especially because we're not pros, and I thought this even in the second iteration when there was volleyball and stuff. I know you were trying as the organizer, because I think there's a third person we need to consider, which is Eric the
observer.
Eric the think tank. Eric the one that's creatively coming up with these ideas and what he'd like it to look like. Because frankly, that person comes up with different ideas than the organizer and the participant, right? So,
well, money is a big part of that. The cost to implement the think tank Eric ideas is astronomical, and
so amazing.
The budget is down here, so we got to figure it out to make
it's the hybrid. But so to my point, the organizer, you were very concerned about getting through those events quickly. And especially after everybody was gassed from 4v4 4v4 basketball, I don't think anybody would have had a problem if all the volleyball games happened on one court and we all watched. And I think you saw that in play, like during the soccer shootout. It didn't take long. And I think everybody, being gassed and tired, was okay to sit for 10 minutes and actually watch their competition or just watch this moment having fun or grab a drink. Because there was almost no downtime in the volleyball basketball one. And so anyway, similar with 2v2 ball, because I think that would be fun. I think if John and Colby go post of 61, it would be exciting to know and to try to track in your head what number you have to get to. I mean, that happens all the time in match play golf where, okay, they just popped out a 330 drive right in the middle. Now what am I going to do to try to put the pressure back on them? Anyway.
Well, for sure. Well, again, the organizational side, because those are two different. One with the 2v2, we had the 4 teams, so it's a pretty small group. The 4v4, we had 6. And then that's the other part is the point structure. So making sure that we're coming up, because especially the first and second one, you were heavily involved with me as we're kind of figuring out how do we make this a point system that makes sense. And our algorithms are pretty intense at this point.
Einstein.
But time-wise, if you remember on the 4v4 ones, I mean, on both nights, we were done at 11, right? So even packing them all close, the Halo tournament, that one was probably done a little bit earlier, but the poker night went till 11 or something for the last table to finish. Right. Some tables finished earlier than that. So that's where I'm like, okay, I want to get through the events, especially, so right now the way that it's organized for the one coming up will be 4v4. We're going to have 8 teams of 4, and every team chooses a sport that they want to bring down. And so that means for them to get the impression, at least in my head, my expectation is like, okay, if I brought down 2-ball and we don't get to it because we spent more time on the other ones, well, like I feel like I'm cheated because that's the event that I felt I was going to win. So I feel like I have to get through all the events and make it pretty efficient. And I think that we'll be able to balance it this time a lot better, just knowing the facilities that we have access to and kind of getting through things. But
speaking to Eric, the organizer, is this next iteration in St. George or Heber?
Probably Heber. Okay. Yeah, logistically moving it down to St. George would be a little bit tough. Yeah, and then in Heber, we have access to that rec center. I mean, it has everything. It has 4 full court basketball courts, but each court has the option of 6 hoops. So, I mean, everybody could theoretically be playing a game at the same time, or we have 2 teams resting or something. So it has the ability for us to get through things and watch. It has 3 indoor soccer fields, which is good for soccer or ultimate frisbee or whatever sports. It has 3 tennis courts. It's got like real professional volleyball courts with lines and nets and posts and everything else. So just facility wise, it makes sense. And if we had to play pickleball because of weather or anything else like that, we could do it there. So organizer wise, that's what I'm going through is like, what sports can we pull off with 8 teams of 4 that either have, I really liked how we had it with the one time. Cause like for poker as an example, you were the only one representing your team at the poker table. So it's kind of like one person. And then we had the spike ball and cornhole going at the same time. So now you were paired up with somebody on your team and you're having to rely on that one person. And then we had 4-on-4 basketball, volleyball, where it's like, okay, the whole team is together now in golf. Now the whole team's working together. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic. Just personally as the player now as Eric, I liked playing with you all. I liked being able to play with different members of you in different scenarios. And then I also liked being on my own in an event and feeling that kind of pressure.
So in the one that's coming up, are you, as Eric, the organizer, going to choose all the events? Do you think that eventually will be where Man Games will go, is that the events will be set? Or are you always going to offer it to the player? Or are you just going to create like a rotation, kind of like the British Open, that kind of, there's 8 courses and we rotate around all 8, but then we recycle those because those are everybody's favorites?
I think there's going to be some form of a rotation. In the upcoming one, each team is going to choose an event. So I really don't have control over the event other than the one that I'm going to bring down with our team. But outside of that, they can kind of choose. Now, there are some parameters they have to work with because, again, I got to avoid fights. We're not going to do boxing. We're not going to do things that's going to physically harm people. And then arguments, right? Like, I think we're going to have 4v4 basketball, but that one makes me a little bit nervous because you get just the right scenario or circumstances, or someone throws an unintentional cheap shot that's perceived as an intentional cheap shot, and then it just blows up really quickly with competitive athletic people.
You do know how you'd have to combat that. You just have to have refs and a scoreboard.
Well, refs don't really help we've played in enough men's leagues where it's like the ref probably might make it worse than calling your own fouls because who knows what they're thinking. But
I guess you could have foul allotments.
Yeah.
In
but who's calling
games.
the foul?
Defense or offense?
Right. But an offense could be like, oh, you touched me. You breathed on me. I'm James Harden now. That's a foul.
It probably would be offense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and as a defender, you just know that the margin's going to lean towards if you make contact.
And that's the thing is like 4v4 in all of the events that we've done it in, there was like one play that really had an issue. So it's like, for the most part, it's fine.
Right.
But there is the chance as Eric, the organizer, of like, I can't have that blow up. But then again, like pickleball, I mean, you could argue lines, but it's not too bad.
Well, and
soccer penalty kicks, what's the argument there? Like if it hits the pole and bounces, did the whole ball get passed?
And I don't think with pickleball lines, I mean, even at the professional level, those are called by the players.
Right.
And so if you aren't certain, then it's in. So if they call it out, then what they're saying is they're certain. And if they give you a bad rap, meaning they've made a bad call, you don't really have a chance to argue. Like the players are the ones who call.
And I guess I was kind of the instigator of the controversy around football, right? One was with an offensive pass interference call and one was with a lateral. And that's where you kind of have to have somebody there watching it.
Why are you even participating in Man Games?
Such
You're
a
going to get
hothead.
kicked out, dude.
Well, as we talk about the evolution of it. So I think that it'll cycle around some sports that are conducive to that. Again, like poker as an activity or Halo, there's not a lot, you can't cheat. I mean, I guess at poker you could cheat with cards or whatever, but for the most part, it's hard to cheat. It's hard to really argue with anybody. And so those events are just really conducive for something like this or spike ball or cornhole or anything else. But the evolution of this, I think that I'm going to have to become an organizer for the event and not a participant. And then there will be an event that I participate in, like an actual edition of Man Games. But I think eventually to have somebody who's just dedicated to running it, I think it'll run more smoothly and I'm fielding all the questions rather than answering.
It'll take it to the next level.
Yeah. So I think that's where
everybody's going to want to crush you though and step on your neck in all the sports. So
well, that's why when you're the organizer, you set the rules, you set the point system. I mean, how can I lose?
But if you're not participating because you're organizing,
I don't think everyone will want to crush me in particular. I think like because we had some people who attended ours and they did a Man Olympics, right? Like they didn't want to crush me. They wanted to go play with their buddies and their friends. And somebody who attended the most recent one, Matt, he lives up in Washington. He's like, oh, this would be fun to do with my friends up in Washington. That's not like I want to crush Eric. It's just getting a group of guys together that you get along with reasonably. And
well, okay, but if this spreads a little bit, the 3-time Man Games champion shirt that you should have on right now is going to follow you around. And if
I don't have a
somebody,
3-time Man Games
if somebody
shirt.
was,
It's one
it's
champion.
a 3-time.
It's one
it's all
champion
3.
shirt.
You have 3 rings, like
Yeah.
you're running out of fingers.
Exactly.
They will say, well, we think we're the best. And then the GOAT conversation's going to happen of Man Games, and they're going to want to show their dominance by beating the 3-time champion and saying,
I love the confidence you have in how Man Games is going to spread to be
yep,
a worldwide
they're
phenomenon.
going to want to beat the champion.
Well, and I think if this goes crazy, I mean, again, this is just a very local thing, but to have kind of regional events, and so to get to the ultimate Man Games competition that is flown in from all over the country, and we've got ESPN covering this, NetJets covering this thing, I think you have to qualify for that by winning a regional event or taking top 2 or something, and then you qualify for this, and that's where the best of the best come. And I've made this point on our website for this upcoming event, which we found, if everybody on your team hasn't played a varsity sport of some sort in high school, probably 2 sports, you're going to get destroyed. Like overall in Man Games, you're going to get beat because there are some really good athletes that come. And so you have to just be prepared for that.
Right. And they're going to come and they're going to be a specialist in one of them. So
Right.
if you are able to get your feelers out there and understand how good a specialist is in that sport, then.
Because if we get Pro Rick to come to pickleball,
Oh yeah.
like
roasted.
everyone will get destroyed. And if you're just a casual, I play with my in-laws or I play with my wife pickleball and you're going against him, like
What's the kitchen? If they ask that question, they're out.
you forfeit.
You're done. 0-4.
But that's and Man Games again, if for anyone who's thinking of coming down, it's not branded as like the average Joe, like, oh, I'm an average Joe, I like to play sports. It's like, no, like if you want to go against really good athletes and play sports at a higher level than what than what you used to be used to in high school and then after that or college, because we've had college athletes that come on, to feel that pressure and to feel that level again is something that you want to be ready for. And if you prepare for it, then you won't be as sore, just like anything.
So I actually think that's one of the main reasons that you might, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't admit this, but
I'll admit anything on this.
I think I have more questions then. So the one thing that I remember thinking that I didn't anticipate from you in this iteration of Man Games was after the pickleball event, and you were like, I mean, your body was shooting out adrenaline, and you were like, oh, that's one of the first times I've felt that kind of tournament pressure, which you probably are most familiar with in your high school basketball games. But it was back, right? Like you had to perform, you had to hit the shots, it was working, and that was exciting. Like, whereas the other events or the other teams that you had to play, they don't produce that. And so then all of a sudden that's the one that would get you to come back to the next Man Games.
Well, and that's that, and we weren't recording when we were talking about this, but this competitive mindset of beating somebody. So in pickle, like I was shaking. Like I don't shake very much. I like to enter the scores in my computer. I was shaking.
I mean, we've played
match.
a lot of sports. I've never seen you. I mean, you were pissed when you 3-jacked on 18 and missed your score that you could have made by making a short putt. And you were emotional about it. Other than that, I don't really see you get emotional. In fact, I think you employ a method in your brain that says, the less I care about this pickleball match, the more I'm going to enjoy it. So
and that's what I
the
cared.
only time I've seen, right, you cared.
Because it was John and Colby's event. We play pickleball with John and Colby all the time, and it's always very evenly matched.
Very fun.
Every time when we play our best of 13 series, it's always going all the games. And so this one, that was the event that they chose to bring down. I know that John wants to beat me at my event. I want to beat him at his event, and that was his event. And we were both going into that pretty amped. And then,
oh yeah, I mean, because I think in Man Games, and we talk about the rotation, but I think there's a core set that kind of are expected to be part of the rotation. There's basketball of some form, whether that's 3-point contest, 2-ball, which I think was a hit, especially with your stickers, and 4v4 if we bring the athletes. And we got, and like you said, a lot of the participants in Man Games are there because they've played high-level basketball. Like that's how they know you. And so basketball's in there, golf's in there, just because it's enjoyable and we like it. There's some cost concerns because it's a little bit more expensive, so we're trying to figure that out. But it seems like that's going to be a perennial, and pickleball.
yeah.
So pickleball is going to be one that I think it always is there. And so, yeah, we were amped for it because we know it's one of the ones we should and want to care about.
One of the highlight. It's one of the main events.
Yeah, we have fun with it.
Plus we won the first game pretty handily. Second game
had a decent lead, 3 or 4 point lead, and it didn't relinquish too badly.
But we've played in a tournament before where we've blown big leads.
Oh, yeah,
and so that was in my mind. Like we won that first game and I was like, all right, we can't, like, let's win the second. And we lose the second game and I'm like, shoot.
And
then
I
we get down.
remember us having the lead in the second a few times.
I think the second game was closer, but I think they pulled away. I think it was like 11-8 or something. Yeah,
Okay.
it was 11-8.
Okay.
They won 11-8. So it was close. And then the third game.
I remember the last part of that second, they heated up. I mean, Colby was playing excellent.
Well, and then the third one, we got down 7-0.
He was still playing.
And so I'm like, not again, right? Like, we win the first one handily.
Should have won the
fine.
second. I think we had cracks at it.
And then we came back. So it was, again, all of those things in combination with the history we have with John and Colby, great friends. I always want to perform well when I'm playing my friends. And the fact that we had to come back from such a big, like every point mattered, every shot mattered.
Right.
And I was telling you this. So a few years ago, my dad, myself, and my brother all went down to the Utah Summer Games and we played tennis. And so my dad was in one division and my brother and I were in another division. And my brother and I played doubles and singles. And so again, you get to the point of the tournament where every shot matters and it's really important. Well, my dad and he got to the final and he was 60 and he was playing like high school kids.
Oh, wow.
And so he just plays a style that nobody can really deal with. It's just junk balls and just slices
Lobs,
and
high balls.
lobs.
Yeah,
Just
in
it's
the
really
court.
annoying to deal with. But if you haven't played it before, like he has this big choppy serve and he's had the ball like roll up somebody's arm and kind of hit him in the face because they just don't know what to do with it. And it's not fast by any means. It's just junky. And
yeah,
so
it's not speed.
but he gets to the final and he's shuffling around and he's making shots and he ended up losing in the final. But I think it went to the third set and he's taken on this high school kid. And so he goes to lunch and he's gone to lunch with the same group of friends for years. And a couple of them were kind of making fun of him about it. Like, oh, you're 60. What are you doing playing in these sports? And these guys, some of these friends have played in the NBA. Multiple of them have played in Division I basketball and they're really good athletes. And he's like, when was the last time that you felt that a point mattered, that pressure? And you can only explain it by feeling, but the pressure that somebody is relying on you or you're relying on yourself and you have a chance to beat somebody or win at an athletic event. He's like, I hadn't felt that in years, being 60 years old. And he's like, I got to feel that again. And it was great. And you used to live off of that pressure to these other athletes. And how often do you get to experience it rather than sitting on your couch and watching the Jazz or some professional team? And so I really like that pressure. And I think that's one of the reasons why I built Man Games, because you can get it in a men's league or whatever else. But again, with all of these sports where every event matters, to win Man Games, you have to win several of the individual events and you have to do well in all the others.
Right. You can't have one where you completely lay an egg.
Right.
I mean, we have Halo, so we can't just be adequate in the other ones. We kind of have to get a first or a second to make up for that 0.
Yeah. So that's kind of why.
Yeah. No, I think Man Games, not only does it get that competitive fire going, it gets that competitive fire going with people you already enjoy hanging out with. Like when we go to lunch or when we go to dinner, it's already with people that you'd like to be with. So in that sense, it's a really cool combo. Plus, it's a getaway, right? Like, I mean, I've talked to you about this, but whenever I can just leave and go golfing, I mean, that's a slice of heaven. Yeah. And there's no reason why adding volleyball, adding pickleball, adding basketball.
Home run derby coming up.
Home run derby. Yeah, we should talk about that. That's out of our element, but I think that's kind of a cool, I didn't foresee that when we did our first and second Man Games, but having teams pick the event makes it kind of exciting because it's an artist's palette. Like you don't know what it's going to be.
Well, I like the home run derby. Again, how do you argue it? Your teammate is going to be pitching you the ball. You get 20 swings, and then the last 5 are money balls. And then, okay, how many did you hit over the fence? Like, how do you? I don't know how you argue it.
I
so
mean,
I
you
like
say
that
the word money ball, and all I want to do is an NBA 3-point contest. Like we're gonna have to do that now.
We can have that.
I know.
I'm going to need to buy a rack to hold five balls.
Racks.
5 racks.
If we're gonna do the new version,
you
we're
need
gonna have to have a
25
Mountain
balls.
Dew rack.
But there's going to have 5 of the money balls plus another 4 money balls. So we have 9 money balls.
Right. No, it's
It's going to get intense.
Oh, it's
we're going to
gonna
need
be
some
amazing.
sponsors. So if you're listening to this and you have a lot of money to sponsor,
Hey Spalding,
we
Ding, like can you
we
can
need-
you make it?
I prefer Wilson though. So Wilson, if you're listening,
Oh, Spalding's out. now.
Spalding,
They're
you
like,
could
"We're
win me
done."
over with a generous donation of 25 basketballs.
Perfect. Make 3 of them colored, paneled.
But I want to back up kind of what you were saying with hanging out with the guys, because in the second rendition where we had 6 teams of 4, there were a lot of strangers that came,
Right.
like where people didn't,
We didn't
know
know
each
everybody.
other.
Yeah.
And people got to know each other. And there were people that, I mean, it's been a year now and they're still communicating, and they met at Man Games. They're like, oh, these are really cool people. I think, again, as we have the Eric, the organizer, the Eric participant, I think in that case specifically, because we were up by so much, it allowed me to move away from being Eric, the participant, a little bit and not worry about so much on my performance, because I could lean on you guys. And then I was more Eric, the organizer. And to see that camaraderie, I thought was a lot of fun. And so you're meeting cool people, you're hanging out with cool people, you're playing sports with cool people, and you're in a little group with your friends and making new friends. I think that was probably as big a takeaway for me in that rendition as winning it. It may be easier to say as the winner than.
It's a little easier to say as the winner. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think it's cool to meet new people. I think as it gets bigger, because you've got more teams coming to this one as well. I mean, the organizer's kind of going to be essential, and you're going to necessarily be there with people you don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's like connecting.
That's
do
like
they call it?
a networking event.
Yeah, networking. You're networking,
Yeah.
but networking with cool people that
But-
don't argue on the basketball court.
And aren't trying to sell you crap every time you go.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're just trying to get sponsors and be given crap.
Sponsors. Pizza Hut. Just start dropping brands. All right. So let's dive into, if somebody's thinking of joining Man Games, because all the spots are not filled, their expectations, we went a little bit over it with, I mean, we've got really good athletes. And so if you haven't played something.
Do you want to talk about the sports that have been in there?
Sure. What's been your favorite event at Man Games?
Goodness, that's...
You can't say golf because you're a golfer. So outside of golf, what's been your favorite event at Man Games?
Well,
And
so
why?
being analytical, I could overthink this for days. I mean...
My
and so
memory card only
the
has
one,
so
yeah,
much.
Is it the one that I won? Is it the one that surprised me and that was unique because I've never played it before? Because 2-ball was really cool. Like, I thought that 2-ball was just fun.
Yeah.
And so, and yes, we won, but I could have lost, and that's why I say that. That's why I'm actually emphasizing the fun, because I haven't played a whole lot of sports where if I lose, I'm still saying it's fun.
Yeah.
And that one absolutely would be there. And yet, if I had to get a dictionary out and say it was a sport, I don't know that I would, but it was a really good time.
Is it a game?
Let's not. I could just completely destroy you trying to get to the etymology of all of this.
Well, and that was the feedback I got. And again, a big part of Eric's internal insecurities is like, when people are saying something, is it to patronize me or is it genuine? But I felt like the other people who participated in 2-ball were like, oh, that was a lot of fun. We had the big speaker. The song made it kind of enjoyable.
Right.
It just, all of it was just this 90s thing. I don't know. I thought that one came off well.
It was really interesting because when it did move a little bit, because a lot of the games that people proposed in this most recent iteration where you allowed the team to pick the sports, there were a lot more that I hadn't done and that were kind of almost like mini games or mini sports, like the balloon launching of the tennis balls, like cornhole,
Even
like
a penalty
PKs. Yeah. And so you can do those. They're not incredibly time consuming. They're not going to make you sore for the rest of the weekend or blister your hands or, blister your feet like a tennis would.
It hurt my leg. Penalty kicks and the kick, pump pass kick and penalty kicks.
We did that kicking 65 practice shots at Olympus High.
As hard as I could.
As hard as you could. Like, I could make a 45-footer. It's no problem.
Yeah.
45 yards, sorry. So I thought that was actually kind of fun because those are also things that there's really not a large learning curve for. Like, you're all athletes, so everybody can kick a PK. Everybody can figure out cornhole real quick. And yet they're still competitive, right? You can get those competitive juices flowing, and you don't have to be sore for days and on 800 mgs of ibuprofen for the next 3 days.
So as somebody who's not the organizer and has come to play, what do you think? And so for those who want to come play, to do well at Man Games, what skill set do you have to have? What mindset do you have to have? What team do you have to put together?
Well, yeah, teammates is important, as I've shared. Like, you're the only reason I've ever done well at Man Games. Yep.
Pretty sure Donnie and John
that's-
had some significant influence in the other one.
Well, wait, how many we'll need? Okay, yes, but I mean, that was an all-star team.
Yeah.
Those guys are off the charts, hand-eye and all sports. I will say organization of some sort is helpful. Like, I think, especially as bad as we shot in 2-ball, us having gone over strategy and tried to at least familiarize ourselves, even with the sports that we hadn't played before. Because even when I went to Man Games, I mean, the original one, we picked the sports because they were sports that we had at least dabbled in.
Mhm.
And that makes it a lot more enjoyable, because then, you're not learning the 2-bounce rule in pickleball, or like when you can't step in the kitchen. And that's super helpful, because then you're not unfamiliar, kind of trepidatious moving forward. You can just be comfortable.
Yeah, in terms of the events that are coming up, and as soon as I can't put out the list of what events there are, but as soon as they get finalized, it's out there, right? So
exactly.
So then everybody can read up. And usually I send out not usually, every time I've sent out the communications, like, here are the rules. Here's what's to expect. Again, with 2-ball, it's kind of hard unless you do it or you've seen somebody do it.
But I noticed that all 8 guys, as soon as they watched a video, or as soon as you explained it with the music, or even did one dry run, then they were all like, oh yeah, okay, we got this. It wasn't hard.
I mean, we took a lot of time in our strategy, and then like John and Colby had that strategy like their first
They
day.
had it so fast. Yeah, it was like hour number 2 before we were like, you know what, maybe we should do this. That would be better. And they were into that like 30 seconds in. So
Okay, so what kind of teammates should you get? You mentioned a specialist. What kind of teammates should you bring
well,
down?
if I can be blunt, I mean, before we were friends, which I don't even know if we're friends right now,
Nah,
but
that's debatable.
That's
a whole nother debate.
Pretty positive we're not.
You did challenge me at the etymology of sports and games.
The only reason I've even been invited is because I'm considered a golf ringer.
Not true,
Yep,
because you're
that's-
really good at the other sports.
Okay, but
You're a
I
really
think
good
that
shooter.
was an unfortunate byproduct that you weren't necessarily aware
No,
of.
so here's this. You asked me the other day, like, why did you talk to me?
True.
Okay,
Which you
so
have-
here it is.
Which you're still avoiding.
Is that the question that you were talking about? I wasn't avoiding
Yes.
it. We were doing what we were golfing when you asked that.
No, I was just texting you. I'm pretty sure.
No, I didn't get it in a text. You asked it to me. I think we were golfing,
Yeah, okay.
and it was
Yeah.
like I'm
Oh,
going
yeah.
one
Oh,
way
I
to my
texted
ball.
you after we were done golfing.
I'm going like one way to my ball. You're going the other way. Hey, by the way,
Thanks for ignoring
you
me.
like yell
jerk.
it. I don't even know what you asked me. It was windy. So anyway, when I first got to the place, we used to work together at EMI Health. So I got there and everyone was like, oh, Brandon he's good at everything. Like, one, he's a phenomenal golfer. He's good at volleyball. We've played in the corporate games and he's always the guy, like, you have to have him on the team because he's amazing. And so I'm like, I'm going to beat him. Like, that was my mindset. I was like, oh, he's a good golfer. I'll bet I can beat him. Right. And
You're
then
dead.
I know I can beat him in basketball. I know I can get him in tennis. And then, so Man Games might have been birthed by them telling
By
me
the
how good you
hatred
are.
of Brandon.
It's like, okay, he may have me in golf, but come play me in ping pong.
Your competitive mindset is the birth child of this. This is where it came from. This is the Genesis story.
I like seeing how I can do from a sports perspective compared to other people, right? Like, if it's public speaking or math or whatever, like, I really don't care. Like, if you're better at math than me, so be it. I'll still try though. I still might want a chance. But sports wise, but again, that depends too. Cause like wakeboarding, water skiing, snowboarding, I cannot do those to save my life. Like, I can't get up on a wakeboard no matter what. And every time I go boating, it's like, oh, we can get you up. It's like, no. But
I'm
if
the
it's
same.
if
I'm
it's something
terrible at
like
balance sports.
if it's something that I'm close at, like I'll give it a go. Like, I think I could beat you, because a lot of that is the mindset that I think I want to get into is, if you're playing somebody a little bit better than you, how do you beat them? And I think that this is braggadocious, but I think that in several sports where I'm at least adequate, I can typically take down somebody a little bit more gifted than me physically by trying to outthink them. I think John is very similar in that too, where John's not big, he's not strong, but he's going to outsmart you in pretty much every sport.
Which
that he
is
plays.
why he had the 2-ball strategy immediately.
Right.
He's super. I mean, he's a chess genius too, apparently.
Yeah, I got
Didn't know
destroyed in
that.
chess. That was an
Thanks,
event,
John.
but we did have chess there, and he
I was
beat me.
depressed the entire
He
weekend.
beat me soundly.
And I don't even like chess.
Everybody
I was
beat me
bothered.
soundly. I lost 3 straight chess games. I don't even think any of you were paying attention. You beat me.
Because it happened in like 15 seconds.
Well, give me a
16?
little bit more credit than that. It wasn't like the 3-move checkmate or whatever it is. But
5.
so playing somebody, so the teammate, you have to bring teammates down, somebody who's a specialist, especially in the sport that you're going to bring down, bring somebody that you know is going to beat everybody at that sport. Is that fair?
Yes.
You assume is going to beat everybody.
However, like if I were just a golf ringer, then I think it shows up in Halo. I mean, I'm terrible. And so if somebody was going to be a 0 in all sports, then the specialist, you at least have to consider that, okay, your specialist, what's he worth in the other sports?
You have $15. You have to draft
Exactly.
5 players.
Dustin Johnson's in the top row.
Okay, so but even that, so you're saying like if you have somebody who's a 10, and then they also need to be at least a 6 or 7 and everything else.
Yeah, you don't want him to be too big of a liability. Or you have to be able to hide the liability. Like John thought through Halo, and although I was still a liability, like I did some good things by not dying and by having the sword.
Hide with a
John.
sword. Hide with a
Appreciate it.
sword.
Hide with the sword. Don't do anything real in the game. Just do your best not to die and have the weapon that all you have to do is push a button when you see somebody and you're golden.
Okay, so you have your teammates. What about physically? Like getting
I
ready
would
for it?
love to say that I've prepped, but as most of these have happened, COVID, and the first one was even a little bit before that. I mean, yeah, you need to be good enough that you're not going to get injured. Because I think there was some genuine soreness in that volleyball, basketball one for some people who came and weren't quite sure that the basketball was going to be almost Division I basketball, and then they were dead the whole time. So yeah, I mean, the fitter you are, the better you're going to perform. But I haven't been fit any of the times, and I'm still alive. So
Okay.
that's why I say I outperformed myself in 4v4 this time. I was not anticipating ever having to do anything because I was just.
Well, you're a good shooter.
Give
you
the
had
rock to Eric.
No, you
Yep.
had the highest shooting percentage in 2-ball. Granted, you were shooting layups. No, I'm just kidding.
By
Yeah.
your directive, you just shoot these ones. You just shoot 5s.
I
That's
just
all
want
I
the
can
points.
trust
That's
you
how it
with.
was in real life. I'll shoot the 3s. Everybody else mess around at 2s. 3s are worth more. No, but you had the top shooting percentage in the 2-ball competition. That translated over into 4v4. So you're a really, really good shooter. You know at least where to stand on the court, and then and everything else. So
Yeah, I'm not a super liability.
I would recommend practicing each event. Again, I think that it
Right.
helped. Now we practice penalty kicks on a full size goal, and we went indoors, so it was an indoor goal, and I think that messed with my brain.
Well, I think it messed. I think that one would almost have to be rethought because we didn't realize we'd be on a mini goal, like a calcetto or
Yeah,
futsal goal.
yeah. Still super fun though. Okay, so now you're coming down. Let's say your team is going up, and we've hinted at this, but you're playing against somebody who's a little bit better than you. How do you approach that mindset?
Well, against John and Colby, who are better than us, I mean, it is thinking. You have to have a strategy. And I think we determined that going to John is going to,
Be more dangerous.
oh, yeah, I mean, we could lose 11-0 if he's on fire and if we don't play well. So we're measuring the odds and saying we have a slightly better chance the less times John touches the pickleball.
Yeah.
So strategy and thinking is certainly behind it.
Yeah, and I think that part of that too, because we've all been in a part of something where we kind of play down to our competition. And so there were several points in that, and talking to John afterwards, where because he didn't see the ball for such long periods of time, when it did come to him, he wasn't in a groove or a flow of anything.
Right,
And so
no
he would make
rhythm.
mistakes he wouldn't make otherwise. And so I think that beating someone a little bit better than you is if you can get them out of their element, a little bit out of their comfort zone or what they're used to, and take away what they like to do and make them do stuff they don't like to do. I think you have a better shot at winning.
Oh yeah, I mean that's Rafael Nadal to a T. And I know you're probably going to delete all of this now that I've said his name on your podcast, but I remember that post-match interview that you told me about the one time. This was a while ago.
I think it was Tsitsipas,
It was
right?
Tsitsipas, exactly. Yeah. And Tsitsipas was just like, I don't know, because he was on fire before that, but he was like, he made me play terrible. And I think that's exactly it. Like Rafa knows what you want to do, what your sweet shot is, what you'd like to hit, and then he doesn't allow you to the whole time.
And that was his MO against Federer for pretty much their entire careers, was like, Federer won't hurt me with his backhand. I'm just going to throw it to a high backhand the entire match and see what he can do.
Yeah. If I can make it so that I'm hitting good shots to his weakest shot, eventually I'm going to be able to tee off on one of these.
So how do you mentally prepare for the other? So when you know, like you're going into your golf event, how do you mentally prepare? One, play not to lose. You don't want to play not to lose. There's how many negatives do we got there? You don't not.
It's a positive?
Not.
Is that a math problem?
So you want to avoid playing to lose, but at the same time, maintaining, not playing down to your competition. I have a friend, Chris Miller. We both have a friend, Chris Miller. Love him to death. For whatever reason, I always play worse when I'm around him because I think I'm just having such a good time that I don't focus. So how do you maintain a mental focus and strategy on something where okay, I shouldn't lose this?
I mean, and I think you'll agree with this. For me, especially on the golf course, I mean, it's execution. It's not thinking about the big picture. It's not trying too hard to hold the sand in your hand, right? You have to sort of let it happen. And so I'm just thinking about one shot at a time. And I know, and I have to have the confidence, and even if fake it till you make it, because a lot of the time I don't go into these and think, oh, I'm going to crush, I feel like I have the potential to shoot 90 as well. But I know that if I go in and execute, like my best should end up being better than everybody else's best. And that's enough confidence to produce good shots if I don't get too ahead of myself.
I'm hoping that as people hear us talk about how good we are at stuff, they're like, oh, I want to go beat them. And then they sign up for Man Games.
Well,
man-games.com.
I think that could happen because they're going to think we're a bunch of D-bags.
I'm going to kill Eric at basketball.
Confident.
I'm going to kill Brandon at golf. I'm going to kill John at pickleball. That's probably what's going to happen.
If we get a Korn Ferry Tour player that's like, yeah, I'll take your Man Games, then I don't think I'm going to win golf anymore.
That's what's fun about a scramble, though, right? Because the scramble, again, if the Korn Ferry guy is going to go and shoot a 62 by himself, then fine.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. This is one thing I've seen with golf, and I think we see it in Dustin Johnson, like at its epitome. But it's a bizarre thing, but you really can't care. Like, what did Dustin Johnson say the other day? He was like, I just hit the ball, and it's good or bad, and then I just go hit the next one. I mean, he's just so nonchalant about all of it. And I think that's why he's won on tour for 17 years running. I think you have to have that complete I do not care mentality, because unfortunately in golf, sometimes you care so much that you end up hurting your own performance. And I think golf, you kind of have to let come to you. You just have to hit the shots and not get in a bad mental space. And if you put in the time, eventually that's going to pay dividends.
Well, we have a quote from the Justin Thomas thing, though, about golf, which just kind of I'm confused with because, well, we'll read it. So he said, it doesn't matter how close I am with somebody. I want to beat them so bad that they want to quit golf. I don't care if it's Tiger Woods, if it's Jordan Spieth, if it's Ricky Fowler, if it's whatever, if it's Jack Nicklaus, I don't care. I'm out here to beat everybody. That's what I'm trying to do. So I think that I feel that in certain scenarios, certain sports, certain instances, it's never
not a question.
I've never felt that in golf.
You're the only other person I've seen that exhibit that.
John definitely has that though.
Only for you.
No. But yes. I don't know how you have that mindset with golf. Because I can't influence, like basketball, I can influence what you do. Golf, I can't influence what you do.
I think it's just that
unless it's Brooks and DeChambeau paired together and they're talking
so much fun. They needed to do that. It's going to happen. It's going to be epic. I think that what he means is I want to beat you by 20. I want to beat you so that you hate this sport. So at that point, he doesn't want to win by 1 or 2. He wants to win like Tiger won the 97 Masters, right? He wants to win by a landslide.
So is that like to show that you at your best or not? Because I can hate golf on any given day and say like I'm throwing my clubs away, which I've done several times, and you've talked me off the cliff. I don't think
I bought them off KSL and gave them back to you, and then you reconsidered.
But I don't think that's what he wants, right? He doesn't want Tiger or anybody else like chunking shots and dumping him into lakes and playing poorly, does he? Or does he want them to play their best and he still beats them by 20? Because Tiger at the 97 Masters, everyone played fine. He just
played better.
Played great.
I genuinely think if Tiger plunked, so they're at such a high level and they're all doing great. I do think he would enjoy it. I think he'd love it if Tiger plunked one into the water when they had
an 11 on 12
line.
or whatever it was.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, the 11 gets out of control and I'm sure his heart goes out to him, but if it means that he gets to win the tournament because Tiger makes an 11, yeah, I think he's that competitive.
Yeah, see, I don't feel that. Except in tennis. I will say in tennis.
Oh, good gracious.
Like I want to get through the match, and in tennis my job is to make you miserable and make you hit shots you don't want to and lose quickly. So in tennis, I think for sure if you double fault every time and then I ace you every time, like that's a great match. Like I'm happy with that. But in basketball, like if you're just like bouncing it off your foot the whole time and pick a ball, like you can't return any serve, it's just like, this isn't fun for anybody.
And if you play me in ping pong, you don't feel that?
My favorite thing in ping pong is when you're slamming it as hard as you can and it goes in and I just return it. It's like, all right, keep going. And then you lose the point and you lose your mind. Like that's my favorite part of ping pong because you're playing your best, you're hitting really, really good shots and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you don't want me to score a point. I'm saying you know what this sentiment is.
I don't want you to score a point, but I don't want you to miss every serve. I don't want you to fault every serve, and I don't want you to whiff on every one of my serve. Well, acing you in ping pong is pretty fun too.
I was gonna say
But again, I want you to be able to put it on the table. It's like playing my daughter. Like I don't get enjoyment out of crushing my daughter in ping pong because she's learning how to hit a ball. Like it's not.
Well, and that's another thing we could talk about, which is I think everybody wants to beat the Yankees, right? Like kind of a thing. Like I think they want to climb the hill and have to beat the Goliath, and that's what makes it a savored victory, like something that they enjoyed. So what you're saying is you only like to crush my soul because I'm actually decent at some things. So because of that, you're like, I'm more decent. So
it's like the more emotionally involved you get in a point, the happier I am when you lose.
Right. That's stealing somebody's oxygen.
Yeah.
That's breaking their
in ping pong though.
Jugular.
But I don't feel that
Right.
to everybody. I think it's because we're friends. And this goes to like, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but like when you're trying to find friends, I think that when I'm searching for friends and I enter EMI as an example, I'm like, who here can challenge me? And not as like the Goliath challenge, but like mentally or intellectually, or who can have conversations where it's like, oh, we're both adding to that conversation and I'm not talking to a wall. Or if we go and do something physically, it's not like, well, this is dumb, right?
Just waiting for this person to catch up. Yeah.
No, but I think that you challenged me because we talked about your strengths and my weaknesses kind of overlap. And so like you challenge me on some things. I think I challenge you on other things. And then we can talk about aliens or anything else. And we can go different directions with conversations. So I think that
Astral projection. Doctor Strange. Thanks, Benedict Cumberbatch.
hey, I'm just saying, don't knock it till you try it.
I've been trying. LSD hasn't worked thus far.
Did you just confess to a crime on a public
TV?
podcast?
Yeah, they could check. I don't have any in the system.
What else? What else do we need to cover?
Well, how do you, like, if you know you're playing somebody that's better than you in basketball, like you played Matt. I mean, you know, at least in the 5 position, Matt's better than you. So what's your mentality when you're playing somebody you want to win, but you feel like you're outmatched a little bit?
I think with basketball, it's tough because you kind of, what's nice about basketball in a real game where you have 4 quarters is you can kind of feel out people, but in a shorter game, it's kind of tough. Tennis wise, you have the advantage of there's usually a warm up. So in the warm up, it's like, okay, I'm going to hit to his backhand. I'm going to hit to his forehand. I'm going to see how he deals with a higher volley, with a lower volley in the warm up or an overhead. It's like, okay, he really struggled with this. So I'm going to kind of push on that a little bit. But in basketball, you just kind of have to size them up physically. And so Matt just, in that second game in particular at the end, it's all about finding a mismatch. And this was the conversation that we had after the fact, after we had lost that game, is you have to find the mismatch in basketball. Watch any NBA team. The reason that they're setting picks is to get a switch so that they have the mismatch they want. And I think that's the case in basketball. And in that mismatch, again, if they get a small guy on a big guy, there's going to be a speed quickness difference, right? And so because of that, a lot of the times you'll see the small guys pull up for threes because the big guy is trying to compensate for that speed distance by backing up a little bit. And so if they don't back up, you can get by them. And if they come up on you, if they come up on you, you get by. And if they back up, then you have a little bit more room to shoot. So Matt never really guarded me in that aspect because we never really got that mismatch. I was guarding him and he just came at me, right? So from that perspective, if I'm going against him and we're both guarding each other, my mindset's going to be like, hey, I'm going to hit a 3 every time he hits a 2, and I'm fine with that, or I'll foul him when I have unlimited fouls.
But I don't remember you having a mismatch out at the perimeter.
Well, there was one on Colby, right? And no offense to Colby, but in my mind, I felt like that was a mismatch. There was one with JD, and he just hacked the crap out of me, so we had to stop.
Well, we had to call them paramedics, I think.
We had to call the cops because I think that he stole my wallet. I think that he rifled through all of my belongings, and he took a tooth.
I just remember the Band-Aids and lots of blood.
There was blood everywhere. I think it's just finding the mismatch. So again, if it's a one-on-one thing, what is it that I have the advantage over them? There are very few people that are our age that are just pickup basketball players that I feel are going to beat me in a shooting contest. And so I'm going to turn it into a shooting contest. I will.
Except you, Donnie. Donnie, he tells me
no.
You can
I
beat
will
him
destroy
at
Donnie in a shooting contest. Except he did
That's
win
not
the
what he
3
says
on
behind closed
He
doors.
did win the 3-on-3 shooting contest. The one person that in my life that I will admit from a shooting standpoint has always been like, okay, like he's here, is John. And John, for whatever reason in 4v4, does not want to shoot the ball except when he's playing against me. And then he goes off for 21 points.
Well, and he waits
against our
till
team.
his team's down by 10 before he decides that, okay, I guess I'm going to have to be an offensive threat.
John's one of the best, like, pure shooters. And for whatever reason, when he's on my team, he doesn't shoot the ball. Probably because I'm jacking up all the shots.
Because you were like, give me the rock.
He never sees the ball.
It's like pulling it like Jordan Clarkson. Like, no. I'm open.
No.
I promise.
Yeah.
You guys aren't open. I'm open.
There was the picture I saw. It was like what everybody else sees, and it's Kobe Bryant. And then they're playing, like, let's say the Wizards, and even his own teammates have Wizards jerseys. So it's like what everybody else sees, and it's 5-on-5, and it's what Kobe sees, and it's 1-on-9. So he's like, I got this. May he rest in peace. Was that too soon to talk about Kobe in such a way?
No, I think it was, you just mentioned his 81-point game, and it'll be fine.
He had 81 points. No, but I think that's the mindset, right? In any sport, is find the weakness and just go at it and see how long they can maintain that edge. Here you go. We'll wrap it up with a would you rather.
Okay.
Unless you had something on your mind.
No, I'll ask you back. We both have to answer. So don't ask one.
Are you going to ask me another would you rather? Or
No,
is it like
probably the same
it's
one.
the same? I'm pretty sure you're not going to ask this would you rather.
Okay, well, I'll decide if I'm going to make up a new one.
Okay. Just know that my wife will probably watch this episode, so just keep it in that context.
What are you saying, Eric? Gosh.
Would you rather be a reverse centaur
Oh my gosh.
or a reverse merman?
We already decided this. I'm not going to have a fish top. So apparently the reverse centaur, which is also bizarre, but I'm not going to be
So you have
gills
like, you
and
want
a fish face with human legs. Can't do it.
well, you have fish fins.
I know. All still worse.
Well, you have like hoofs now. If you're the
I am very well aware.
All right.
This is not a great choice.
okay. What was your would you rather?
I am so lost now. I don't think I can.
Can you imagine a reverse centaur though? Be intense.
I can actually. I do know what that would.
All right. Would you rather go back to being 5 years old, knowing everything you know now, or know everything that you will know in the future right now? Have all your
5 years old.
5 years old and replay your life?
Guaranteed.
Why?
Because then I have 80 more years.
That's assuming a lot out of your
Well, I mean, if I
Health.
have that much knowledge, I'm guessing I'll still be risk averse. So I should be good to at least make it to the age that I'd already made it to, and hopefully beyond.
All right.
Fountain of youth, man. There's not really out there. So if somebody's going to give me an opportunity to go back to 5, I'm taking it.
All right. Okay, that's valid.
What about you?
I'd probably do the same thing because, I mean, the world could end in the future and it could be really unpleasant. But I know at least up until this point, it's been relatively fine. I mean, COVID was what it is, and but we haven't had, like, at least in my case, I wasn't drafted. There wasn't any serious health concerns. So to be able to go through that again, really correct a lot of the dumb things I did in my youth, that'd be nice.
So would you rather be stupid successful in a career that you don't really like, or be broke but be a professional athlete in your, like, you know, top 3 passionate sports?
Well, that, like, to be the top athlete in my favorite sport.
No, to be an athlete.
But not a top athlete.
Well, okay, if you're a top athlete, you're probably not broke.
That's what I'm saying. Like, am I really bad?
You're trying to get 2
Am I
out
really
of 1
bad
here.
with money?
You're trying to get 2 out of 1 here,
Because
Eric.
I don't make a lot of money, or I'm just really bad with money, so I never
Maybe
have
you're
it.
in another country, so you're playing pro, but you still only make $5 a
Pretty
day.
racist there.
I don't know.
You'll
You'll have to edit that out later, I guess.
I don't know. That's hard. So would I rather be an athlete, a professional athlete, and not make a lot of money, or
Right.
be in a career that I'm really successful in that I don't like?
Yep.
How long are we talking?
That's life, dude.
Well, if I'm really
401k
successful, I
until
could.
retirement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm really successful, then I could retire at 30.
You are trying to have your cake and eat it too on this question.
Just feel like it's pretty logical to go down this road.
That's not how would you rather works.
I would rather. Do I have a family?
I don't know. How do you define success? Like, success was part of the first person.
I thought this was like financially.
Okay, well, that's what you thought. So is
Well,
family
it was
part of
phrased with no
financial
money.
success?
It was phrased with no money as the athlete. So that's where my mind went financially. With
Yeah,
success.
exactly. So do you want a family with no money? And do you have a family if you're financially successful?
I would rather have a family that I could provide for financially than to go do what I am super duper passionate about.
Okay.
Like, go teach tennis lessons for the rest of my life and not live on that.
I think you answered it.
All right. What would you rather do?
Oh, goodness.
Careful how you answer this
I already
question.
answered one. I'm leaving this
Careful
one for
how
a
you
future
answer
discussion.
this question.
I already answered one.
You phrased that we have to both answer the question.
You didn't answer the one. you
Reverse
gave to
centaur is
me.
easy. I don't want to walk
Not
around with
that
gills
one.
because I can't breathe outside of water, and I can't swim because my legs suck. So I would want to be a fish.
Terrible
I would not
question.
want to be a fish. You'd also have to have some sort of a bowl to survive outside of
No,
water.
it was the other one. You
What was
didn't
the other
answer
one?
your own.
The 5-year-old one?
Yes.
I did answer that. I'd rather go to a 5 because the future, I
You
don't know if
copied
the world's
my
going to
answer
end.
because you were like, yeah.
No,
okay,
mine
that
was
makes
much
sense.
more detailed and
It
much
was
more
not.
thought
You were like,
out.
yeah, I guess I do
It
want
was
extra years.
Much better articulated.
I would. Well, the thing is in my mind, not that I had a chance to be an athlete, but I mean, I could have followed my passions. I've already done the other one. Like,
You could have been a professional golfer.
I tried for a little bit to try to be a college golfer, and although coaches were interested, I kind of messed up my years of eligibility. So,
Well, and that's the point, because at that point you were married.
well, no, I wasn't. Not when I was talking to coaches. I wasn't.
You could have been a professional golfer with enough time. I'm not saying you would be like Tiger
It is
Woods.
so incredibly competitive right now, but I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Right now, yes, but 15 years ago?
Well,
I mean,
there was nobody around.
we
that
won't
was
reveal your
dominating
age. Yeah, they were like
since
in
Tiger
they were
Woods
in, like,
was on tour
hand
in
cards and stuff
1997.
when you were in high school. They were probably like, had the telephone been
They didn't
invented?
have cell phones. So in my heart, I suppose that I would think that I would choose to something to be passionate about, but obviously that's not what I actually chose. I chose a family and I chose trying to make a living. And
Because you could still make that decision now.
well, right. I mean, you could.
You could be like a professional podcaster,
Perfect. That's my passion.
Man Games champion. There's so much money in that.
Only because I have good partners.
How is your flash flight?
So good. I tried playing with Nora one night and so we have a BMO.
That was the night that I was supposed to come play.
Yes, it was. Thanks for bailing.
Yeah.
We could have actually used it. So with her, I got like a throw and a half in and then we were done. But so we have this BMO that's like a flexy, foamy, soft Frisbee that because it's somewhat light doesn't go incredibly far, especially if it's windy. And she's great at that one. And she's terrible at real Frisbees. It was bad. So 1.5 throws in, she was like, yeah, I'm done.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Okay.
Bye.
Wilson, we still need those 25
Wilson,
balls.
I like the NCAA game ball. The evolutions are terrible. They feel really heavy and
stopped
squishy.
watching when you called one of their products terrible.
Don't send me the evolution. Send me the NCAA game ball. I think it was called a solution at some point.
I'm sure the 3 people that are going to watch this one's definitely going to work out.
Caitlin will watch this. Andrea, maybe? No? Your children? Your famous YouTuber?
Nora does watch a lot of YouTube videos that are
Yeah.
just completely mindless. So